Okay. Okay, so welcome to the class again. Today I want to start with discussing your classwork. I don't know what happened, but I do feel like your classwork was pretty easy. It was a case study, and somehow almost everybody fumbled the classwork and their responses. And so a couple of issues. First of all, I want everybody to understand. I think that is something that everybody is missing about what product management is. Product management we are doing is software product management. We are not managing physical products per se. Now, a physical product could be an integral part of what you get to manage, but what we are doing is in relation to software product management, right? Is in its totality is software product management. You're trying to understand how to manage the life cycle of a software product. For example, CUDA app in itself is a software product, but it functions with a hardware product. So basically, while managing the life cycle of something like CUDA app, something that you would have to confirm is that your product, your software product, functions properly on a phone or a laptop, right? And so those become your test environments where you have to ensure that whatever has been encoded for your product works on every device that you have promised that it can work on. That is the whole point of product management, software product management. So when I ask you questions for your classwork and I start to see things about physical products, it's quite jarring that at this point most of you do not understand that we are dealing with software products. The whole concept of the development of or the life cycle of a product is from the fact that you start like you're thinking about the development team and who makes up a development team, the engineers, the designers, right, and all those people. And what are they doing? They're, like at the end of the day, what you are expecting when we talk about launching when we talk about launching or the end of your development, you're talking about integrating your codes, right? You integrate your codes and you create a build. That whole concept is not a physical thing that you necessarily see and you're able to touch. All of those things are software. All of those things are not tangible that you get to touch it physically. So we are not dealing with smartwatches. Not really, we are not. Now, would there be times that as a product manager, you get opportunities to maybe manage physical products? Yeah, it could happen, but that is not the onus of your entire career. Is about your entire career is about software products. It's about coding. It's about managing coders or software developers. So it's not Samsung phone. It's not iPhone. But I did allow responses that had responses to the classwork that had physical products, and and I think for this classwork, something I did was that what I needed from everybody was just to be able to say that they understand what we discussed about user research. And at the foundation of user research is interviewing users and understanding user behavior, which is directly linked to user interview and interview types. And then the other thing was market research. And it was very important to me that I'm able to tell from looking at your work that you understand market research and how competitive analysis plays a very huge role in a very huge role in your market research. And there were cases where I saw people that couldn't, their responses to the number one question was giving, interviewing someone for a job, or interviewing someone for a job as a product manager for their new product or something like that. I don't understand what it is about this first question that is so confusing. The question says, choose a product in the tech industry of your choice. Create an unstructured and semi-structured interview made up of 3 questions for each interview type. Now, I saw a lot of things that looked copied and pasted, and a lot of you were repeating the same things. Almost everybody was writing about smartwatch and repeating the same questions. And I find that very disappointing, because we need you to be able to, like, these things we are discussing presently, they seem like theory. But by the time you accept a role in product management, it's not going to be theory for you anymore. Now you're having to be in the field. By the field, we could be talking about creating surveys for people to respond to, or or creating interview questions for the marketing team, right, or the content team to ask users that they will be interviewing. And no one is going to come to rescue you. No one is going to grade you per se. It will just be noticed that you don't actually know how to create interview questions, and you don't actually have an understanding of how these user interviews are supposed to go. And these are things that you're supposed to know. These are things that you're supposed to learn from these classes. Because I don't really understand how you could sit through my entire class last week and you couldn't capture that what we are talking about is the different types of interviews for user research. Because if you understood that, why are you asking questions like, what would you do if you were to be hired for this role? And then you're asking even some questions that sound like back-end questions. You're asking your users to compare your product and that of your competitors and tell you something that makes your own stand out. Your users are not there to do labor for you. Your user research interview questions are more so to understand the responses of your users to your software products, or to research how they would respond to the products you are yet to launch. This is a product you're still planning to launch. This product, you want to understand how they already respond to similar products in the market. And from what they say, you get to find out their pain points and make their pain points a requirement for your product, so that you have an edge against or above your competitors. So a lot of the responses to number one, very disappointing. Number one carried 6 points. So if you find out that your score is 6, that means you only you only did well with your number one question or your first case study. And then something else I found was that it's just the ability to follow instructions. I need because this is something that you would experience a lot as a product manager. A lot of the problems you might run into is communication. It's one thing to communicate or put out information out there, and it's another thing for the person that you are attempting to communicate with to have an understanding of what you are saying, right? And if you're expecting people to put their ear down and hear what you are saying and listen to what you're saying, people also expect the same from you. You have a lot of meetings, and if you don't take care, a lot of things will run by you or will be run by you, and you start losing information. This is where your listening skills will be questioned. A lot of times, if you find that there will be a lot of gaps in communication. Every time that someone communicates with you as a product manager, then what is happening is that you are not a good listener. You might be good at constructing your grammar. You might be good at constructing what the message you're trying to put out there is. But do you listen enough to find out that this person wasn't even catching on with what you were saying? So if every time I give an instruction on a classwork and I am finding out that most people do not understand the instruction, even as simple as the instruction might have been, it's something to worry about for you guys, because it will get to you when you start taking on product management roles. Anyways, the instruction was simple: create an unstructured and semi-structured interview made up of 3 questions for each interview type. Unstructured and semi-structured are both types of interview that you conduct for your user research. So when I say 3 questions for each of them, so one of them will be unstructured. Unstructured interview would get three interview questions, right? Semi-structured would get 3 interview questions as well. That's why there was for each interview type. And then I think something that some people struggled with was you wanted to copy and paste from somewhere, but you didn't study what it was talking about. So we had people that their responses were like research papers. I had someone had 15 pages for their response, and that was definitely not what I was asking for. I just wanted you to think of a product by yourself, name the product. It could be something that exists, and like at first I didn't want it to be something that exists. I wanted it to test your ability to just think out of the box by yourself. But then I saw that a lot of people were going with existing products, and I also saw that my question for the first case study didn't necessarily specify if it was an existing product or not that I was expecting. So I gave a lot of grace for that, and I allowed that, and I took responses or interview questions in relation to existing products. And then the other thing is that I am not sure how you have one product that you're answering for in the case study 1, and then you have a different product for case study 2. How did that happen? Because it's one classwork, and then the first question says create a user research interview question, basically, and the second question says create a competitive analysis capturing 4 features. Now, with the second question, I didn't ask again for another product. I do not think it's rocket science to figure out that there is no way you need a brand new product to answer the second question. Anyways, question number 2 or case study 2 carried 4 points. And the reason I wanted you to create tables or a table for your second question was that it makes it very easy to see. If you say this is your competitive analysis, and what you wanted was to compare, let's say, adaptability to devices, right? And you say there is a web page that makes it adaptable to a laptop or a desktop, and then there's a mobile app that makes it adaptable to personal mobile devices. And when you do that, and that is the feature you're looking at or you're looking to compare, you can just tick good or the wrong sign, right, or the X sign for each of them, like whichever one fits what you're saying. Or for some people, their competitive analysis was more detailed, where they tell you the details of how this fits into this particular feature that you're looking at, how they meet the criteria. Like all of the features you're discussing or you're comparing them to, they are all there are criteria that they are supposed to meet in a sense. So when you're grading them or when you're writing about how they meet this criteria, it could be detailed and you're giving me details of how they meet this. Let's say for the people that use hardware devices, if you're talking about Samsung and you're comparing it to iPhone and Infinix and all of that, and you're talking about the screen and the adaptability of the screen to apps, something like that. And you didn't just do good and or has a screen or something. You detailed how this screen is actually adaptable to apps and things like that. And the purpose of a table is that the minute I am looking at a table and I'm seeing a feature and on the row and on like at the header of the columns, I am seeing the different competitors and your own product. It's very easy to capture what this person is comparing or the comparison that is being drawn here, and then I can grade immediately. You see, in every situation, if you're going to do documentation for even the C-suite executives, your co-founders, and whoever their investors might be, or their consultants, for example, could be, and your documentation starts becoming too cumbersome, and it's something that when people look at it, they get even more confused. You have not communicated through that documentation. People will get tired of looking at that documentation. They take one look at it and they are stressed out. And nobody wants to deal with that. So one of the things that our assignments here or our classworks here do for you is that it allows you to find out or understand how you could communicate better, right? How you could communicate better and create better structured communication for anybody to pick up on. And I just need everybody, when we are teaching, learn for practical purposes. Forget passing your classwork. It's very important to pass, by the way. If you don't pass, you don't get certification and all of that. So it's very important that you pass your classworks. That's how you get your grades and all of that. Yes, but you could pass and always get the 10 points for every classwork. But then when you are put in an actual practical life situation to utilize what you've learned from this cohort, you're still unable to account for what you've supposedly learned and have been scoring 10 points for. And that is not something we want. That is not our goal. So at the end of the day, it's very important that for each lesson, you're listening to understand. It's very important. You're listening to understand. And now that we have, I have figured out with my system, the, what do you call that? The recording and the proper way to do a video recording. I do believe that the results and the responses or feedbacks I'll be getting from your classworks will be better. Like I am really hoping, and for your own sake, I don't want anybody to score zero. I don't benefit from you scoring zero. So I do hope that these recordings that we will start dropping for you on the YouTube channel would help you for reference purposes. And if you don't come to the class for some reason, or you had network issues, you were in the class where you weren't getting anything that was being said, please check on the materials, check on the video. Maybe reach out to someone in your class. I don't know how you want to do it, but check on the material so you can read, understand, and then do your classwork. And it wouldn't even look like you were never in the class if you're good at understanding. And if you have questions, we have a question channel for you. If you need clarification on something you've read, reach out to. We might take time because everybody has very busy schedules. We might take time to respond, but someone would respond to you. Don't let that gap in knowledge affect you or your progress as someone that is heading into product management. So let's start our class for today. Remember, I said case study number 1 carried 6 points, case study number 2 carried 4 points. If you didn't get any points at all, you did not answer the question in the way that you could be graded or that I could understand. So I think today, given how expansive our material is, I might be taking a break at say 4:15 or before that. I'll let everybody catch a breather by that time and drink some water and like whatever it is you might need to feel better and refreshed and come back to the class. That could be just 5 minutes or less. So so I do believe everybody can see my screen. If at any point you stop seeing my screen, and just let me know. Joshua, I believe if you're still here, then you could let me know as well. But yeah, Joshua, if you stop seeing my screen, then just let me know so I can make sure my screen is showing. So for our session today, we're talking about concept development and prototyping. I know a lot of you have heard of prototyping and might have wondered what that is like or what that is about, especially your MVP. Everybody talks about MVP all the time, your minimum viable product. And then the concept development. When we say your responsibility as a product manager is to move or to manage the development of your software product from ideation. Ideation is the conceptualization. So from ideation all the way to launch, right? That is what your goal as a product management is, to manage the process, to manage the teams that are working on the product and ensure that the product thrives and that you defend and advocate for the product to a point where it becomes a functional product that can be sent into the market. And after the market, you get to manage the product. So when we say concept development, it's the brainstorming process for the ideation or the idea of the product. Okay. So table of contents: problem ideation and solution, assumption mapping, writing the customer problem statement, MVP, what is it, MVP types, and tips for creating an MVP. Okay. Usually, problem ideation is not the sole responsibility of the product management of the product manager. Rather, it involves the whole team. Okay, so this slide is speaking on the fact that problem idea. Remember how I talked about focus groups and how they come into play when it comes to ideation and conceptualization of your product. It goes to show that the ideation or the planning for a product is not the sole responsibility of a product manager. It is not left to just the product manager, because whatever idea usually what would happen is that when you're hired as a product manager, you're the co-founder, right? Or the CEO would have an idea of a product that he wants to get into. And this is for a situation where you don't already have an existing product. So you're bringing the product to life from scratch, right? Your co-founder would have an idea of what he wants and the problem he wants to solve. So what happens is that he communicates that this is what I want. And a lot of times he would also present you with materials evidencing the researches that he has done on his own. Now, he has done this research from a place of passion. Most times it would not be from a place of knowledge or specialization. A few times you'll find CEOs that have worked in said industry for a long time, so they do have knowledge of what they are talking about, but that is not always the case. So you need to always assume that your CEO depends on you for information and knowledge, or to fill up the knowledge gap that he might be facing in trying to come up with a full-fledged idea. So the first thing that happens is that you get an idea of what the CEO wants or what the co-founder wants. And what you do from there is communication with other teams. The first thing is communication with other teams, you or maybe other product managers, for example, depending on how expansive what you are building or you're supposed to build is, and hence the size of the team. For in most cases, you don't get to have just one product manager because there is a lot to be done with a product. Sometimes you have a product manager, you have an intern, and then they still report to a head of product, right? So this is trying to let you know that when it comes to ideation, um, or understanding the problem you're trying to find a solution to, which is what your app or your product is supposed to provide, you don't run this by yourself alone as a product manager. There's a lot of involvement with other teams. So as a product manager, to perform your duties, there's a lot of dependency on other teams. There is a lot of dependency on other stakeholders to be able to function in your responsibilities. Okay, it says here, however, it is the manager's responsibility to gather ideas and connect these ideas to the business objectives. So I think I touched a little bit on this with our first class, where I did mention that your responsibility as a product manager is to find the center for everything that is going on, or every work or every responsibility or role that is being performed. All of those things could be standalone responsibilities. For example, design. If someone is creating a design for you, or someone is creating a brand new code for you, these could be standalone responsibilities. Where you come in as a product manager is the part where you reconcile and reconcile and bring together every responsibility that like would point you towards the building up, that will connect every responsibility or role or task that has been dished out to satisfying the business objective. That's just what a product manager does. Your goal is to make sure that you're tying every responsibility towards the same business objective. So whatever anybody is doing, someone is creating a design, you're making sure that this design is what we need to achieve what we've decided that our product is, right? Someone is writing a code, you're making sure that the code that they are writing is, from your communication with them, is even viable in the first place, and that the code, you get to understand what is needed for this code to function back end and all those things. Your goal basically is to tie every responsibility towards your business goal. And so it's saying here that you're trying to connect these ideas to business goals, which is exactly what I'm saying. These ideas could come in the form of company initiatives, feature requests from users, or internal or external feedback. Ideas generated from these resources are collated and documented on a product backlog. Backlog will be addressed next week. So what we are talking about here is we source for ideas from, like, there are many places that you could get your ideas for a new product from. And what happens is that you need to understand the market that you're going into. You need to understand what your proposed product is. And with that, you then go on to find out how do I put this? Where, not how. You find out where you can get information that could keep you informed as to what your idea should be, what it should look like, and how to present it even, right? So it says here that the ideas could come from company initiatives. Now, I talked about brainstorming. This is where brainstorming comes in. You want to have conversations with different stakeholders, right? If we have an idea to bring a crypto exchange app or web app, and you are trying to find out what could be built with, like, in-house. You're having conversations with in-house stakeholders. I'm trying to understand your goal as a product manager while doing this brainstorming is that you're trying to have a full picture of what your app or your solution could look like. Sorry, first of all, you're trying to understand the problem at hand and then the solution that you intend to create for this problem. And that solution is what becomes your app. That solution is what becomes your web app, right? Or your mobile app. And then what you need to finalize on the solution that you have in mind is consultation with your colleagues or the stakeholders in question. So you consult something like the engineering team, the head of engineering, or you consult the head of design. And your goal is to find ways to ensure that your idea is viable, right? It's one thing to have an idea, and it's another thing to have a viable idea. So you could have all the ideas in the world, but if none of your ideas are practical, right? Beyond business practicality, because most times, by the time you're talking about an idea and tying it to your business objective, most times you've already established that this is unprofitable and this is something that could be scalable in the future. And that is not the problem you're trying to address. The problem you're now trying to address is, how do we ensure that our idea is even viable? We can create this idea and it would be functional. So that's the goal of all the brainstorming you're doing. You're trying to envision what it will be like creating this idea and how useful it will be and how every responsibility and task will be tied to this idea to make it a reality. So you're doing that. That is where you have in-house conversations and you consult different teams and you're trying to understand how they come into the picture to make this a reality. And then you have feature requests from users. So sometimes, the way this is written, feature requests from users, it could be understood to be just feature requests from existing users of an existing product, right? Which does happen. Say OPay is trying to create a new feature and they need to ensure that this idea for this feature is viable and it ties to the business objective and all that. You interview your existing users. You could do surveys. You could also do actual interviews, and you could do select a group of people that you feel are efficient in or have been efficient in using your product, and you interview them and get insights into what their experience is like and how your new feature could help them. It's either that, or for the most part, you analyze users of your competition. So now you want to create a totally new product, CareerEX financial institution, for example, or financial team or something like that, or financial team or whatever. And you decide that this is a fintech and I want to do something that looks like what Kuda, OPay, and MoneyPoint are presently doing. And you don't, because it's a brand new product, you don't have users that you're going to interview for, like users of your product, because you don't have a product yet. But your competitors do have users, right? Your competitors do have a market share, which means they have users that can answer some questions as to what their experience of these existing competitions look like. So from these users of your competition, you're able to ascertain where the gap is, where their pain points are, and how to find a solution to those pain points. Which, of course, you're creating a product that is within the fintech industry, which means you have a lot of similarities with the existing products. But knowing what is a recurring problem within the users, what is a dissatisfaction within the users from interviewing users and all of those surveys that you do, is what gives you an edge. So this now makes your idea, this now starts to contribute to the viability of your idea and the possibility of this becoming a reality, which is the whole point of of your position at this stage of a product. So internal or external feedback could be from anybody, could be from the team, the different teams that you're working with. And then some fintechs or tech firms, they have process analysts, they have business slash process analysts who could tell you, could study your idea or have a conversation about your idea with you and tell you about the functionality in the sense of business, right? How it functions or it plays into your brand as a business. So that's what internal or external feedback. It could be from anybody. It could be from the actual co-founders, where they are like giving how many years they've worked in this industry, and they are now trying to create their own solution to problems that they've observed. They don't think this will work, or they think we could go this route, or they could say, I would recommend a consultant on this particular thing, and I will speak to someone, I'll refer them, and they get to speak to you as a product manager and all that. The whole point is the feedback you get from internal stakeholders and external stakeholders could also help you solidify your position on your idea and the solution you're trying to create. So it says here that the ideas generated from these sources are collated and documented on the product backlog. So what happens is that as you start to collect these ideas, you start to create just to-do lists. Yeah, I would say a backlog in product management, they are basically to-do lists, but because as a product manager, you're not necessarily doing anything in particular by yourself. There isn't much that you are doing by yourself. You could make calls, have conversations, analyze service providers, and decide on which you're going with and all that. But like the core of the tasks that will come with creating a product, they don't come from you. Those tasks are usually the responsibilities of stakeholders, right? So what happens is that you start to collect like what are the things that we think we need to make this app a reality, and then you start to take note of what those things are like that you're discussing, because you have a lot of meetings, brainstorming meetings, and all these ideation meetings or concept meetings. You start to write down what it is that you're concluding on. If you say if it's a loan app and we need insurance, so you already know there is going to be integration with an insurance company, right? And so what happens is that you take note of which, in that conversation, it needs to be mentioned that we need insurance for our loans. So everybody will start pitching in to let you know who it is that could, the best insurance policy that they've seen in the industry, for example. You could take note of that, but the actual thing that you place on your to-do list or backlog, which will be discussed next week, is that you need insurance policy for your loan, right? For your loan servicing. So you take note of that. And usually that responsibility will fall for something like that would fall on the product manager or the product management intern, for example. So moving on, product ideation is a customer-centric approach which involves translating user feedback into actionable steps that can improve or contribute to the product. So the whole concept of product ideation is that you want to understand your user, right, or your customers. So what happens is that you take the customer-centric approach, which means you prioritize their needs, you prioritize their the things that they are lacking from your competitors. So this helps you create like your full idea of your product. The full ideation of your product comes from all of these things that I have mentioned. We have mentioned things like brainstorming. We have mentioned things like internal and external feedback. We have mentioned the brainstorming falls under company initiatives and feature requests from users. It could be existing users, it could be your competitors' users that you need to speak to or observe to understand what is lacking in the industry so you can create solutions for So it is a customer-centric approach, like I said, in the sense that um, it builds on feedback from customer or user research. So we have 5 steps or 5-step process for ideation. So step one is gather feedback from users. Like we mentioned earlier, whether this is done by conducting quantitative or qualitative user research, collecting feedback in app or via other communication channels or through social listening. What's important is that you listen to your users and note that their complaints or feedback regarding your product and note their complaints or feedback regarding your product. Now again, this first paragraph seems to be more on existing products, because I want you to see the two sides of things. Everything about product management is going to the way you're going to work as a product manager is going to depend on, do you have an existing product or not. So if you have an existing product and what you're building are new features and all that, then you have existing users. And then when you do something like user research, you will be including interview of like with your users, right? But when it is not an existing product, what would usually happen or be helpful is you're interviewing people that use similar products. So you have competitors in the industry. If at the time that OPE was created, what would have helped is to consult or observe or question or listen socially to users of other banking apps or other fintech apps. So you, with that, you're able to observe what is needed to make the market better, right? Or the experience of the users better. So you gather feedback from users, and then step two is you collect data gotten from users. So with your interviews, with your observations, your social listening, you find out that what you then need to do is to translate all of the feedbacks that you've been receiving. So you're receiving all these feedbacks, you're receiving, we would like to be able to do so and so, we would like to be able to process certain things. What that feedback does for you, or the usefulness of it, is that you're able to change it or transform it into actionable steps. Like, what are functional steps that I can take to um, to transform this feedback into a strength and create an app that is actually useful. It says here, for example, let's assume your product is a fintech product, and while conducting user research for a virtual card feature, one of the user informs you that their biggest frustration is being unable to pay for Apple Music with most Apple Music with most Nigerian cards, because this is a problem peculiar to the Nigerian market. You immediately realize that it's only a dollar card that can solve this user problem. Automatically, you know that your product has to have a dollar card offering. So this is the thing. An example was given with about collecting data from users, right? So the example is that you've decided that you want to do a fintech product. You want to create a product within the fintech space, and then a recurring problem or complaint that you've seen from users is that they continue to talk about how they are unable to pay for their music, right, or to pay for things online with their Nigerian virtual cards. So what you find out that, okay, so a dollar card is needed to be able to make these payments. If you're able to confirm this, that a dollar card is needed to be able to make certain payments, which is something that with how technologically advanced the world is something that comes into play all the time. People want to order from Amazon. People within Nigeria want to order from Amazon. People within Nigeria want to order from what are those other? from different platforms where they have to pay online with their card. And you find out that even though this is a common problem, it seems like no one is coming up with a quick solution for it. So something you would do is that you already know that you need a dollar card to be able to process this payment. So something that could be part of your product is ability to pay or to process payment as a user using with the use of a dollar card. So you make sure that the options, like your users would have options to make their payments. One of the options would definitely have to be a dollar card. So besides the regular Nigerian safe virtual card and all that, you want to be able to ensure that someone can upload their dollar card or dollar card details encrypted, so that this becomes a solution that you are offering as a new fintech that other existing fintechs don't have. So it gives you an edge again. So you collect that, like the way that you've checked, observed, or asked questions, and you've understood that what these people need is how to process payments for online purchases or subscriptions with their cards, because that they have that data that you've collected is now used to decide that you want to do a dollar card processing or payment processing with your app. So automatically you know that your product has to have a dollar card offering. This is a way to draw actionable steps from data collected. Data can also be collected from internal sources, that is people within your company, provided that they fit into your target market and audience. Then you can conduct user interviews and extrapolate features from feedback. So something that I do with my products is that I interview my colleagues, but I give them room. I create an anonymous survey, right? In reality, nobody wants to be the person or the colleague that tells you that the product that you created, like within the product team or within the development team, is whack, or that this product like doesn't do anything, or for most of the things that it promises that it could do, it's not delivering, right? Nobody wants to be the person to tell you that, especially considering that you both share the same employer. So what you can do, like something that has worked for me, is creating an anonymous survey and providing it to teams to fill up in their free time. So that is a solution or another way to find out, like, or to collect data from internal sources. What else? Prioritize features. If you did step 1 and 2 properly, that means that if you have gathered feedback from users, and you have also collected data and gotten you have also collected the data you got from the users, then it should be easy to it should be easy for you to create a list of features which you will document on your backlog. What it's saying here is that once you've done your step 1 and step 2, as mentioned earlier, collect data and what was the first one again? Collect data and collect feedback or gather feedback. It becomes easy for you to have a list of things or features that you want to implement, right? Because of all these observations you've done, questions you've asked, and all that, and meetings you've had with in-house colleagues and all that, you are now able to say these are the features that people that would help, like, with the existing problems for this particular market. So if the market is a market for fintech products, and there's constantly you're seeing something like inability to upload their dollar card and process transactions, you already understand that a dollar card processing avenue needs to be created for your users, and that is important and will give you an edge, right? So match each feature idea against company goals and product vision, and select the ideas that closely align. So if you want to prioritize, what is most important is what presently matches your business objectives, right? At the end of the day, everything you're doing is to be able to create business. By business, I mean a market share, a a community of users, and hence growth and income for your product. So you need to prioritize and understand based on the resources you have, what is more reasonable to focus on right now. That's how you prioritize based on the resources you have, based on the research that you've done, right? You want to be able to say these are the features that we need right now and can't wait, or we must have. You make them your priority, and they become the top of your list on your backlog. Um, Implementing prioritization techniques, which we will cover next week, is beneficial to decision making at this stage. Again, it's quite an important skill as a product manager to know how to prioritize, the proper way to prioritize, and what to look out for when you're attempting to prioritize, right? So you don't make mistakes and have a lot of gap in your work. So step 4, implementation of selected ideas. At this stage, you've already selected features that will go into your MVP for new features, or features that will be launched next for existing features, and have documented this on your PRD. Okay, so at this stage, where it says implementation of selected ideas, you should have already like selected certain features that will go into, like, that will become a part of your MVP, like features that you want your MVP to have. You want to have been able to decide on what that will be, and you should have also documented this on your PRD. So it says here the PRD is handed over to the design and engineering team to implement, after which QA testing of the product to ensure products meet documented requirements. The PRD is handed over to the design and engineering team to implement, after which QA testing of the product to ensure products meet documented requirements will commence. Okay, so the role of the PRD is to make sure that you have, like, everybody on the team working on that particular project has been able to tick off the requirement that they are supposed to create, like that they're supposed to be in charge of. So if you have been able to achieve that, then you can tick it off and know that you can now go ahead and test, right? It's also your PRD that helps inform what your QRA template or reports would look like. Well, we'll get into all of that later. So we have the 5th one is launch the product. This is where you close the feedback loop. You started this process speaking to customers, and you end it informing customers of the new features or changes coming to the product. Okay, so for example, if say Kuda was putting out notifications or in-app notifications, right? If you've been putting it out, like if you've been putting those notifications out about surveys, you want to do surveys, and you're like, every time your customers or users open their app, they're asked to do a survey. At the end of your research, your user research and all of that, you need to be able to say, So everything that, like, what we were intending to achieve with this research was accomplished, right? And then that is when you announce your new product. So that is when you say, we've researched this and we've gotten your feedback and we've created what you've asked for. It's even an amazing way to advertise your new features for your existing users. Okay. Okay, so here is showing us the loop of problem ideation and how you close it out with launching the product, right? So you gather feedback, you collect feedback, you prioritize features, you commence implementation, and then um, implementation is where you start the design, and then there is the coding, and then there is the launch, right? There's the integration, and then the launch and all that. So this is just a diagram to show you how it goes. First, gather feedback. Secondly, collate the feedback, right? So collating is like basically bringing it together as a product manager, ensuring like finding the common ground or the foundation to bring them together to match your business objectives. And you prioritize features. So as a product manager, you need to know what matters most given the resources available to you. The resources could be time, could be human effort, and finances or available market share, whatever it is. And then you commence implementation, the code, the designing, after which you do the coding and all that. And then with your implementation, you integrate and then you launch the product. So before we go into assumption mapping, I would have to ask for a 5 minute break. So we'll reconvene by, or let's, okay, 5 minutes break. Let's reconvene by 4:09 and continue. Everybody can take a breather, grab your bottle of water and sip some water. I definitely need to take some water because I've been talking for a while. And we should feel lighter again by the time we come back. 4:09, everybody. You don't have to uh, leave the video chat, by the way. Just stay on and come check back by 4:09. When I come back, I'll give like 1 minute for everybody to come back before I start again. Thank you, everybody. Hi everyone. So 1 minute for everybody to tune back in. Okay, so we are back. Um, so we're going to get into assumption mapping. I okay. So it says here that assumption mapping is an exercise in which a product team explores any assumptions they believe a user will have about a new product's feasibility, desirability, desirability and viability. Think of it as you conducting a risk assessment on your user based on how feasible, desirable, or viable they will find your product. Okay. Why brainstorming for a new product or a new feature? You Something you take into consideration is all of the assumptions that your consumers or your users would make in regards to your product. So there will be some assumptions like product management gurus have grouped them into I think popular the most popular groups are three assumptions that people would make about new would possibly make about new products. There is feasibility and there is desirability and there is viability. So people will make assumptions about how feasible your products will be, and then people will make assumptions about how desirable and then how viable your products.
Hello, can anybody hear me? I can't hear anything here. I can't hear anything here. Lost.
Oh my god. So can anybody hear me? I have been speaking on mute for about what 5 minutes. My apologies.
Yes, 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 I can hear you now.
Ugh, I was speaking to myself. Apologies, everyone. Okay, back to the class. Uh, One sec. Okay, so assumption mapping. What I was saying is that assumption mapping is an exercise in which a product team explores any assumptions they believe a user will have about a new product's feasibility, desirability, and viability. So, sorry. So basically, you would have users that would you just want to be able to address any assumptions that your users could possibly make about your product, right? So one of the things will be, I'll give you an instance. Like I'm going to read from here about the different assumptions, and then I'll give you instances. So you have the feasibility assumption. I think product gurus have grouped the different assumptions into three main or three popular assumptions. So we have the feasibility assumptions, yeah, desirability assumptions, and viability assumptions. So, what you're basically doing, okay, give me a second. Someone just notified me that my screen isn't up. I'm not sure why. Okay, I believe this is better now. Thank you. I don't know who sent the notification, but thank you. That was helpful. Okay, so you have the feasibility assumption, the desirability assumption, and viability assumption. Basically, what you're trying to do is a risk assessment on your user. Like you're trying to study your user to understand how they will experience your product, um, in regards to how feasible or how desirable and how valuable your products will be. So now, okay, I'll read from this and then I'll go from there. Feasibility assumptions determine whether the team has enough resources to develop a solution and accesses whether any legal or technical blockers will exist on the user side of the product. Essentially, the product team assesses whether they have the relevant technical resources needed to build the technology of the product and whether any legal impediment exists in their target audience, region, or country that will impact the success of the product. Okay. So I don't know how many of you know about um, I, I think I can apologize a little bit if I talk about the fintech space a lot because that is where my experience is based. My experiences are based as a product manager for the most part. Um, so I don't know how many of you know about what happened with Binance and the restrictions that the government has placed on Binance and all of that. Um, if a new digital asset or cryptocurrency service provider, because they don't just trade, they as actual service providers um, that you could integrate with back end to launch your own app as a brand new cryptocurrency app. So if you're trying to create a cryptocurrency app and you need and you want to be a service provider to Africa. You've chosen Africa as your market, and you start with South Africa. You start with Uganda and all that, and Botswana. Maybe Botswana is quite open and quite developed, and you you find it easy to deal with the legalities and the functionality based on what is available in that region, right? You don't just sit back and assume that um, that the same thing would work for Nigeria or that the same thing would work for Ghana. You need to do your research as the brainstorming team or the product team to understand what applies to Nigeria. So now you've moved from those other countries. Say you've done East Africa and it was easy. You've done Kenya, you've done Uganda and all that. It was easy. And then you move to South Africa and you've done South Africa itself. You've done Botswana. Cool, easy. And then you make assumptions that when you come to West Africa, you will conquer the market as well, without understanding the possible legal restrictions within places like Nigeria or Ghana, right? I think for Ghana, it's just proper documentation they require. They don't really, they are not really against the progress of their citizens, basically. But yeah, you have to you have to assume a problem. Like you have to assume a problem with feasibility yourself to be able to understand the concerns or the possible concerns of your users. So if you're able to say, we are going to assume that within Nigeria, we're going to struggle with the legalities of establishing a cryptocurrency service provider within Nigeria. What you're doing is that you're taking into consideration the feasibility assumptions of your users, right? So you're saying, I as a person, as a product manager, I am trying to create something that should work, and my market should be Nigeria. But then I need to think about the legalities, the technical blockers, like you could say legalities, you could say payment gateways within Nigeria. And then when you say that, when you think about that, what you're doing is that you're wearing the shoes of your users, and you're trying to understand how they would experience your product within certain climates, right? Certain legal climates, or certain legal climates of technical climates. You need to understand how advanced technology also is within this region, for example, right? So what you're doing is that you're taking on the feasibility assumptions of your users. That's basically what you're doing. And then there is a desirability assumption. I'm wondering if I should read from here more. Maybe it would help you guys with a more plain language. Essentially, the product team assesses whether they have the relevant technical resource needed to build the technology of the product, and whether any legal impediment exists in their target audience, region, or country that will impact the success of the product. So if I'm trying to download your product, and a possible concern for me is, but all these Binance people were arrested for basically providing us with services that will help us fund or make different cryptocurrency products functional in the market. How do I know that you say we have a new crypto service provider trying to enter, and they are convincing me as a new business to open with them, or to integrate with them as my service provider to be able to create my app? How do I know that tomorrow that the government will shut them down, and then I have to hurry and do a lot of hurrying and scurrying around trying to find solutions? How do I know that I am protected no matter what happens to them tomorrow, right? So you as a product manager, you're thinking like that because you want to address every feasibility assumptions of your potential users. That's the whole point. So feasibility is about technology advancement, legal advancement or legal freedom to operate in a certain region. And then maybe something like culture too, right? If there is a culture that is against a certain thing and is a part and parcel of what you're selling with your product, then it's going to be a problem too. People can't do it. And if you're creating an LGBTQIA product for Nigeria, or for, I think, most West African countries, maybe Ghana excluded, I'm not sure, you already know your waste. Like for the majority of the population, they first of all won't even look at your product more than once. And then for the rest of the population, the problem is the legality of your product, which keys into feasibility, which falls under feasibility assumption. So you need to think. I'm trying to, like, say you're a white person and you're trying to come to Nigeria to create a LGBTQIA product for people in the group, and you have to think about the culture in Nigeria. The legality in Nigeria does not allow me as a product, like as a product manager, does not allow my product to thrive. So how do I ensure that my users are safe when they use this product, that them using this product doesn't make them a target of violence or a target of kidnapping and killing and murdering and all of that? You need to think about things like that as a product manager. So the other thing is desirability assumptions. Desirability assumptions focuses on how appealing your solution is to the user. It aims to assess the preference or delight that you anticipate your users will derive from using your product. So again, all of these assumptions are like anticipations. You're trying to fit yourself in the shoes of your users and anticipate this possible difficulties they would experience using your product or attempting to use your product. Again, all of this assumption mapping is basically trying to figure out or anticipate possible problems that your users will run into trying to use your product or trying to use your product. What are the possible things that they could run into, blockers that they could run into? If it's legal, if it's about the technical advancement and all of that, it falls into feasibility. How feasible is it for users to be able to use your product and thrive with your product? The second thing is desirability assumption. It says here how appealing your solution is to the user. It aims to access the preference or delight that you anticipate your users would derive from using your product. So you're putting yourself in the shoes of your users. You're trying to anticipate the preference that your users will have in comparison to you and other similar products in the market. So if you're saying, I am creating a healthcare app, and then you're thinking, I'm going to assume that my potential users would love my app. So you're assuming that they will love your app, but why are you making that assumption? What is informing these assumptions? Then you work with your with the reasons that you're doing this anticipation. And then whatever it is, if you're going to, if you're saying that you get to skip certain steps in registration, right, or including your family members as your dependents on a healthcare app, is very fast. If that's like your strong point and you think this is why it will be desirable, or the way the color scheme of your products is desirable to look at, and that is something you think is a good thing, then you capitalize on it and you go ahead and make it a reality. So again, all these assumptions is just putting yourself in the shoes of your users and anticipating things from their point of view, anticipating certain assumptions that they might make from their point of view and trying to work with that. Viability assumption assesses whether the product will significantly contribute to the company's success and how it will do so. So, again, when we talk about viability, it's about how something contributes to the success of your business objective, right? You have a business objective. You're trying to build an app. You're trying to make assumptions as to how the way the users come into the picture and create growth for your business or for your app, how that affects your business or how that makes your business successful or how it contributes to the success of your business or company. Here, the assumption is that users will be willing to pay for the product. So you're assuming that your users will be willing to dole out cash for your product. And if say it's a banking app and you're saying that the cost of services or transfer is maybe free and that you're going to make that money through another avenue, right? For everything, when it comes to business, for everything I give you, I am taking it back in one way or the other, right? They say that I am giving this to you and you're giving me clicks. For example, you're giving me clicks on my app and I am making money through that, for example. At the end of the day, business runs by giving and taking, basically. I am giving you as a user, and you're giving me something back. So I am taking, and you're taking, but we are also giving each other. So I'm providing the solutions that you have, solutions to your problems, but you are also contributing to my growth. So here for the viability assumptions, I'm going to make the assumption that you will be willing to pay for the product. But what informs this assumption, right? So here the assumption is that the user will be willing to pay for the product, or that the market will be receptive to the product. Combined with prioritization frameworks, assumption mapping helps the product team move beyond step 3 of the product ideation process. That is, the product team weighs every idea against the desirability, feasibility, and viability framework before further determining, selecting, using prioritization frameworks. Basically, what we are saying is that your assumption mapping helps the product team to go beyond the step 3. Now, let's go back and see what step 3 is. Okay. Here, prioritize feature. So what something that assumption mapping does for you is that it helps you, like when combined with prioritizing the features, like deciding which features are a priority for your product, right? If you make those assumptions, you're able to understand your customers or your users more, or to put yourself in their shoes more, making you more customer centric. You're more focused on the needs of your customers. So with the information you will gather from doing this, you're able to prioritize certain features, and then from there you're able to move on to implementation, right? Where you start to design and you start to code. That's basically what that was talking about. Okay, so we have the viability. Okay, we are done with the viability assumption. Again, the viability assumption is basically about assuming or anticipating that the users will be willing to pay for the product, or that the market will be receptive to your product. When conducting assumption mapping, it is important to collaborate with the relevant stakeholders that align with each framework. Remember what I said, that for the most things that you do as a product manager, you need your stakeholders. So how you communicate, how you reach out to your stakeholders, how you engage them is very important. It's important to maintain a good business relationship with them, so that when you need your help, and basically what they are doing is that they are doing their jobs, but it's good to have a good relationship with someone that they're like, the way they respond to their responsibilities would affect your own responsibilities or your own output. Is very important in your business relationships. It is important to collaborate with relevant stakeholders that align with each framework. For example, when attempting to MVP ideas for viability, you would have to collaborate with the key business stakeholders, versus when evaluating feasibility, you have to align with developers or marketers to determine desirability. Basically, so when you talk about your viability, you're thinking about how this matches your business goals, right? So you're thinking about people that are in the business side of the business, or of your firm or your product. So you're thinking about maybe the marketing team, you're thinking about the finance team, you're thinking about the business analyst here. And then when you're thinking about feasibility, you're thinking about the legal team as well, because you need to ensure that within this region, for example, that a cryptocurrency product will thrive without restrictions from the government. This is an example. And then you also have to confirm from developers that what you are thinking of is actually feasible, is actually possible to create, right, given what they know. So again, you have to think about your resources when making these decisions. And then with when it comes to your desirability assumptions, you need people like your marketers in particular, the people that are in the field and do the interviews, the surveys, and all that. You need their feedback, or even the customer experience team, for example, too, will be very instrumental in your desirability assumptions, because it is the feedback they get from communicating with customers that they will give you, and you would know the response of customers to your products, generally speaking. So you need them to make your desirability assumption. You need the information they are providing you, or the feedback they are providing you, to make your desirability assumptions. So writing the customer problem statement. Once you have successfully mapped ideas into assumptions based on their desirability, feasibility, and viability, it is time to convert the idea into a customer problem template. A customer problem template statement helps you build a detailed experience that shows how your solution is meant to deliver value to the user. So what we are saying here is that once you have successfully mapped out what your ideas are going to be, and then you also move into your assumptions, right? You're able to determine or to decide possible, like the possibility of your products being desirable, the possibility of your products being feasible, and the possibility of your products being viable. You anticipate. What happens is that it becomes time to convert these ideas, everything that you have gathered, into customer problem template or a statement. So what the statement does is that it helps you build basically detailed experience that would showcase how your solution is supposed to deliver value to your users. So your users need to be able to read your statement and understand how it is that your product is important to them, how it is that your product brings a solution to the problem that they are facing, right? If you say customers or users out there are struggling with finding loans that match their income, right? If someone earns about 5 million in Nigeria a month, and whenever they want to get loan, it's like all of the loans around them are peanuts, and the interests are so high and unreasonable. So you start to try to find a way to present a problem statement that shows them, or makes it clear to them that your solution is of value to them. So let's go on. After you have conducted user research, you've turned feedback into ideas, and you've mapped these ideas against certain frameworks. Writing a customer problem statement is how you tie your ideas together, right? Your customer problem statement is supposed to present your product with reference to facts, right? To facts of like all the researches you've done, all the assumptions you've made, and all that. You're supposed to present your argument of, we are a solution to this problem, right? That's basically where your customer problem statement is supposed to present. Okay, so writing a customer problem statement is how you tie your idea, the user's pain point and solution, which is your product, together. So you're trying to bring it together and entice your user. That's what customer problem statement is. You're trying to present it in such a way that there is an actual problem. You're trying to convince someone that there is an actual existing problem and that you have the solution for it. And this is the reason we think these are solutions for you, right? These are solutions for this problem. And this is a reason that this problem, or this is how much this problem can escalate and result in even more damaging problems. That's basically what your customer problem statement is supposed to do. Here is the customer problem statement template. For insert target customer who has dash, you insert your customer need there. Then you insert the idea, which is the specific solution to need. You know what? read read this on your own. So like if I'm calling it out like this, it might confuse you or even get more distracting. Read it on your own and read to understand. It's just a template for customer problem statement. So the template is going to help you have an understanding of how people would usually write their problem statement or their customer problem statement. Remember, a problem statement is supposed to convince someone that there is an existing problem and you have the solution for it. That's basically what it is. It might not be long. Most times it's usually a short statement. Sometimes it's average. It's not too short. It might not be a full page or whatever, but it's not too short. It goes straight to the point and delivers on the idea of this being a problem and you, like your team as a product manager, having the solution. Now let's look at how to exemplify this problem statement template with an idea. Imagine that you are the product manager for a fintech product and data collected from user research shows that your users are having a hard time budgeting their money. Your assumption can now be inferred to be that users want a budgeting tool to help them manage their finance better. So it says here, let's do a practical example. You are the product manager for a fintech product. Sorry. And data collected from user research has shown that your users are struggling with budgeting their money, right? They can't seem to budget the money the way they want, and even maybe have cut off for how much they can spend for a particular thing, right? That's what budgeting usually is. Budgeting tells you how much, how much, or a rough estimate of how much you can anticipate for a certain expense, right? So your assumption can now be, okay, so what you want to do is that you want to make assumption that the product you are going to create will that users would want a product or something that gives them a solution to their budgeting problem, right? And you then want to go ahead from your assumption to think of how to create a solution that will help them manage their finances better. And again, this is where user research comes in and it's very important. It's through user research that you're able to know that there is a problem with budgeting for your customers as a product manager with a fintech product. You're able to identify that, oh, people struggle with budgeting, and this is something that we've heard a lot. We've heard in social conversations, we've heard from our surveys and our interviews. So now I'm going to make the assumption. The next thing is to assume that your customers want a budgeting app or a budgeting feature within your app, right? They want to be able to, they already save with you, but they struggle with budgeting with your app. So now you want to create a feature that allows them to budget, which is most likely something that other fintech apps do not provide them with yet. So after speaking to the technical team to gauge feasibility, user feedback already informs desirability, okay, and syncing with business stakeholders to get buy-in for viability using the customer problem statement template. This is what your problem statement would look like. So it says here, for users in their 20s, this is an example, everybody. For users in their 20s who struggle with budgeting their money, a budgeting feature that helps users budget their money better would solve this pain point. And unlike other fintech apps, some problem statements would mention specific competitors. It is not necessary, and sometimes it could be a risk, but some people do it. I think Apple and Samsung do that to each other, where they are mentioning each other in their problem statement. So it says here, and unlike other fintech apps, my product or feature will leverage users' data to provide them with personalized reports on their spending behavior, which should improve financial habits, product vision. Writing a customer statement further validates your product as the solution to users' problem. Remember, I mentioned this severally. So let's go into MVP, minimum viable product. Okay, so let's get into MVP, minimum viable product. It is the first version of the product that your users will ever interact with. So the MVP should have just enough features to be usable by users. So your MVP should be the first version, like the first thing you create. And for some people, I want to make this clear. For some people, they do not release their MVP to the market. Some people do MVP and then they do a control life. In fact, in most cases, people create their MVP and then they do a control life where they have a few people, a group of people whom they will sign up um, for testing. Like they want you. It's not like this product is ready to be launched, right? But they want to do like a final test kind of thing. So what they are going to provide you with is an MVP. It's functional. You can onboard, you can sign up for something, you can upload things, everything, every feature that should be functional on your full app will be functional on your MVP for the control life I am talking about. But for a few people in the tech space, their MVP is going to go into the market directly, and users can see it and use it. So it's the first version. It's the first version of their product that they make available to users. So the MVP should have just enough features to be usable by users who can then provide feedback for future optimization of the product. So I don't know if you know what iteration is. Iteration is you get feedback, you go back, you fix what the feedback you've gotten. You're able to iterate on the product through when you have an MVP. When you've released an MVP and you get a feedback, then you go back, you fix, and then you come back, get another feedback, you go back again. So that's basically what it is. It says that the MVP should have just enough features to be usable by users who can then provide feedback for future optimization of the product. So every time you go and you do an update or you do an improvement on an existing MVP, what you are doing is feature optimization. Sorry, is optimization of the product. You're optimizing the features of the product. Since the MVP is typically the most simplistic version of the product, the focus is more on building straightforward features as quickly as possible. Remember, especially within an agile framework, what you are doing is that you are trying to achieve the goal of creating a functional product. That's just your primary purpose as a product manager. Create a functional product with functional features and put it out there, no matter how simple. You don't need it to be complex or to be competing for user interface in that moment. What you need it to look like is something that is functional. What you need it to do is to be functional. So all of the most vital features that you need to be present on your MVP. And with that, you're able to get feedback from your customers or from your users. If user interviews were conducted, reaching out to the interviewees to be the beta testers of your MVP before a general launch can be beneficial to fine-tuning the MVP before general public interacts with it. So this is what I was talking about. This beta testing is control life. It's the same as control life. People usually product managers reach out to certain people and they're able to use them to test the simplest version of their new feature or product. And the goal is that before launch, before you do your final launch, you're able to have the best version of your product, no longer the minimum viable version. It becomes the best version of your product. Beta testers are real users who routinely use your product in production, environment, to uncover any bugs or issues before a general release. So this is what I was talking about. This beta testing is control life. It's the same as control life. People usually product managers reach out to certain people and they're able to use them to test the simplest version of their new feature or product. And this the goal is that before launch, you're able to have the best version of your product, no longer the minimum viable version. It becomes the best version of your product. Beta testers are real users who routinely use your product in production environment to uncover any bugs or issues before a general release. I'm not going to explain this line because what is within it will is something we'll address or talk about later, production environment and all that. For new products, building an MVP would be the goal from the onset, hence everything done so far. Problem ideation, inclusive of conducting user research, market research, and competitive analysis, assumption mapping of ideas, writing customer statement for feature ideas, defining requirements, and prioritizing the first set of features are activities geared towards developing and launching the MVP. So remember how I said that that your goal as a product manager is to have an MVP, and the goal is that the MVP is functional. It's not that it looks the best in the market. It is functional. It can provide all of the features that you intend for the main product, right? It's something that someone can fully use and give you feedback on. That's the goal of an MVP. So MVP can be categorized broadly into two main categories, which are proof of concept MVP and functional MVP. Each category can be further broken down into different types as shown in the next slide. Okay, we have MVP types. We have proof of concept MVP. So it says registration of interest pages, digital content, build an existing marketplace. I'll get back to that. Then functional MVP, plain donuts, minimum features, concierge/sticky tape solution, email newsletters, events, and communities. So let's discuss the proof of concept MVP types. Registration of interest pages, landing pages. 1 second, everybody. I need to make sure we are still recording. Okay. Okay. Proof of concept MVP types. Registration of interest pages, or what you call the landing page. A landing page is a standalone. A landing page is a standalone web page that potential users can land on when they search for your product or click on a specific CTA. Landing pages provide credibility for your business, brand, or product. So something that people usually do for MVPs is create a landing page. The landing page is somewhere that people that show interest in your product can go to or click on to get a full idea of what it is that you are providing, what solution it is that you're providing, what it is that your app does, or what it is that your web app does for them, what it's supposed to do for them. So it's like landing page is like the introduction to your product, basically. But it's going to be a web page where people can click from most of the functionalities that also appear on your actual app will be on your landing page, but not in the way that you use it on the app for the most part. So landing pages provide credibility for your business, brand, or product. If you keep telling someone you have a product and you keep advertising your products, you wonder when people click on your ad or when people go to research you, that the first thing that they are taking to is your landing page, right? The landing page is where they get their first introduction to your product. It's one of the ways to win people over. It's one of the ways to win new users over or potential users over to become actual users. Here it mentions the tools you can use to build an easy, cost-efficient page. I'm not sure we need to go through that. You can read that later. Then you have the digital content such as demo videos or blogs. MVP. Using a demo video to showcase what the MVP would look like is beneficial in ensuring stakeholder buy-in. So as well as help pique customers' interest on social media. Okay, so this is something that you could do and make available on social media. Like you want to do demos or blogs or vlogs and have people talk about your product and show, right? And show like what the MVP would look like, what features it will have, what proposed problems it could solve. Other digital content such as teasers or introductory blogs can also be relevant in engaging your target audience on social media. Tools for creating video and writing digital content: Canva or Vid, Medium or Substack for written content. Build in existing marketplaces. Before deciding to fully commit to before deciding to fully commit to building a product, you can first test demand by setting up an online store or online marketplace without committing to buying equipment. You can include photos of items and place them on pre-order to gauge interest and future success of the product. Some of the tools include Shopify, Amazon, eBay, Facebook Marketplace. So basically, what you want is to make this you can test the demand of your potential users for your product. Okay, so someone is asking which app can we use to do a demo video of your product. I am still on it. I think, isn't that what we are discussing at 1 second? Okay, so here it says build in existing marketplaces. Okay, let me do this. For video content, it says Canva or Vid, right? And then for written content, it says Medium or Substack. That's for creating video and written digital content, like you asked. Okay, so build in existing marketplaces is like Shopify, Amazon, eBay. You want to provide what it is you are creating there just to see the responses of people. Or you can provide similar product there to see how people respond to a similar product. Then it could inform you on what the way they would react to yours. Plain donut. This is the general approach to building MVP mobile apps with plain donut approach. The product team selects this simplified version of their product and focuses less on the user interface and more on functionality to ensure users have seamless experience. Remember what I said? You don't need, like when you're going for your MVP, you don't need all of the beauty in the world for it to stand out as the most beautifully colored app before you go ahead to create your MVP. What an MVP needs is functionality. The functionality is how you're able to do testings and understand what needs to be fixed or what needs to be optimized, right? Concierge or sticky tape. A concierge MVP is the combined manual steps needed to simulate your product value without the product. This type of MVP usually involves leveraging landing pages to indicate interest in product and then manually simulating the steps required to deliver value. Okay, so this one is where you usually do demos, I think. Yeah. So okay. So to better explain it or put it in plainer words, usually with your landing page, there is your landing page has some of the things or a lot of the things that you have on your mobile app, for example. So if your mobile app has where it says login, your landing page will have login. And then if your mobile app says has somewhere it says save your money or get return on investment on your money, something like that, your landing page would have that, and then your mobile app would have that too. What it does for you is that it demonstrates the functionalities that you've been advertising or trying to sell someone. So when they get on your landing page, they are able to see if so I can sign out here, I can upload my ID here. So with this product, I can say I can create certain things. So they know that, like, because they see the possibility of this function on your landing page, they know that your mobile app would do the same thing. So what your landing page is doing for you there is it's creating a picture of what it would look like to use your app, essentially. Email newsletters and events and communities. These type of MVPs are great for knowledge products such as digital courses or an e-learning platform. Okay, so most e-learning platforms use email newsletter and events and communities to for their MVPs. They use that to showcase their MVPs. Tips for building an MVP. Ensure to define success criteria. Okay, so almost all products have success criteria. Like when you're documenting for your products, actually your PRD would have a lot of success criteria attached to it, or as part of what it contains. The reason you need the success criteria is that you need where you need to clearly say that this is what you want to achieve with this feature. So if you say I'm building this, when do I know that this feature is completely built? It is when I am able to do this. It is when functionality can be achieved with this feature. So that's what a success criteria does for you. It gives you a clearly defined or clearly mapped out achievement. Like if you're building a banking app and you want to say you want to say like a saving feature, you have to say that this is complete when the user has successfully saved a part of the money in their app and has successfully locked it away, right? So those are like the success criteria. How do you confirm that you have successfully created what you set out or intended to create in the first place? Identify beta testers early on. This means finding the early adopters who will be willing to test your prototype before your products hit the market. Remember what I said, that MVP is usually about having a controlled life. Controlled life is, again, having a few people that would test the prototype, okay, the MVP. The goal is that they are able to give you feedback and you can go back and iterate on the feedback and make it better. And with all those things, you're able to check bugs and the rest before you go into final launching. Prioritize and implement feedback. Feedback is very important for your MVP. The feedback is how you make better decisions or you make better edits on your MVP to create a product that you can launch. Consider your industry or product. Deciding on which MVP type to leverage is dependent on your type of product or industry. Very clearly. So all the MVP types that have been mentioned here, it's very important that you as a product manager understand that for you to decide on an MVP is very dependent on the type of product or industry that your product exists in. So I think this brings us to the end of our class or session for today. You don't really need the recap I usually give anymore as much because this is a clear video. This was recorded in landscape. You'll be able to see what is being talked about, and you'll be able to see to hear what is being talked about, and this will reduce a lot of confusions. So we talked about problem ideation and solution. We talked about assumption mapping. We talked about writing the customer problem statement, and then we talked about the MVP and what it is, the types, and the tips for creating an MVP. So we have been on this for a long time, and I think it's time to end our class. But what would happen is that at the end of the second class, I could take your questions. Do well to organize your questions. If the second class is less lengthy, then I'll probably be taking up to 7 questions or so. So do well to keep your questions safe and prepare for the next session tomorrow. So when I'm done, I could take questions, or I could choose, depending on how I'm feeling at the beginning of the class, I could choose to take questions from this class first before I get into the next session. So I want to thank everyone for showing up today. I also want to thank my assistant teacher, Joshua, for always being very supportive. Thank you everyone for today, and do have a lovely evening. And read up on your materials for your next class, so you're also following along as things are being explained. Thank you for your time today. Bye.